The harmattan's dusty breath swept across Ouagadougou, a fine red veil settling over the city's tin roofs and bustling streets. From his office in the Cossium Palace, President Ibrahim Traore watched the haze obscure the horizon. At 37, he was the world's youngest head of state, a captain who had inherited a nation besieged. The weight of that inheritance felt heavier than the presidential sash draped over his military fatigues. He was a revolutionary by necessity, a leader born from the barrel of a gun in a land that bled from 1,000 cuts, inflicted by jihadists, foreign interests, and the ghosts of coups past. His office was sparse, almost monastic, a large wooden desk, a map of Burkina Faso, and a single, framed photograph of Thomas Sankara. Sankara's fiery gaze was a constant reminder of the path he had chosen, the ideals he espoused, and the fate that could await any man who dared to dream of a truly independent Africa. He ran a hand over his clean-shaven head, the silence of the room a stark contrast to the revolutionary fervor of the crowds who chanted his name. They saw a savior, a symbol of defiance. He saw the razor's edge he walked every day. The door opened without a knock. Only one man had that privilege. Commander Salif Kabore, the head of the Presidential Security Directorate, stepped inside. His face, usually a mask of calm professionalism, was etched with a tension that set every nerve in Traoré's body on high alert. Kabore was more than a bodyguard, he was a brother in arms. A man who had stood with him in the September dust when they had seized power. Not for ambition, but for survival, their country's and their own. Monsieur le Président, Kabore began, his voice low and tight. He placed a slim tablet on the desk. We have a problem, a credible one. Traoré leaned forward, his eyes scanning the encrypted intelligence report. The words leaped off the screen. Stark and cold, chatter intercepted from a satellite network known to be used by French intelligence proxies. Cross-referenced with human intelligence from a source deep within the dissident factions of the army. The plot had a codename, Le Baiser du Serpent, the serpent's kiss. It was elegant in its brutality, not a messy bombing or a frontal assault on the palace. This was personal, designed for maximum psychological impact. A single, high-velocity round. The target, President Ibrahim Traoré. The time, tomorrow. During his scheduled address at the Place de la Nation to commemorate the anniversary of the new agricultural initiative. The location was perfect for a rally, but a nightmare for security, a wide-open square surrounded by dozens of rooftops. The source is verified, Traoré asked, his voice betraying none of the cold dread that trickled down his spine. Triple verified, Kabore confirmed. The asset has never been wrong. They've recruited a professional, not one of ours, a foreign national, likely European, and they have help on the inside. This was the part that always stung the most. The enemy within, the serpent in his own house. A name? Not yet. The signal from the inside is heavily masked, routed through a dozen ghost nodes. All we know is that they are close. Someone with access to your schedule, security rotations, and logistical plans. They are the Judas who will confirm your position and give the green light. Traoré stood up and walked to the window, his back to Kabore. He looked out at the city, at the people who had placed their hopes in him. He had nationalized the gold mines, kicked out the former colonial troops, and told the world's power brokers that Burkina Faso was no longer for sale. He knew the pushback would be fierce, but this felt different. It was precise, sophisticated, and aimed at his heart. He thought of his wife and young son, the life he had sacrificed for this idea of a nation, a land of the upright people. Was he being upright, or just naive? They want to make an example of me, Traoré said, his voice a murmur. Another Sankara, another Lumumba, a bullet to silence the idea of self-reliance. Then we cancel the address, Kabore stated, his tone leaving no room for argument. We lock down the palace. We sweep everyone, from the cabinet ministers to the kitchen staff. We will find this Judas. Traoré turned around, and for the first time, Kabore saw the fire that had made a captain into a president. It was not the heat of anger, but the cold, hard light of resolve. No, Traoré said, his voice now firm, cutting through the tension. We do not cancel, we do not hide. The moment we show fear, we have already lost. They will have assassinated our spirit before the bullet ever leaves the chamber. We will proceed with the address. Kabore's eyes widened in disbelief. Monsieur le Président, that is suicide. No, Salif. Traoré countered, walking back to his desk. He looked at the portrait of Sankara, then back at his most trusted friend. It is a counterattack. They have given us their plan. Now, we will write the ending. Find me the sniper. Find me the traitor. We have until dawn. The air in the presidential palace crackled with a silent, frantic energy. Dawn was a mere 6 hours away. In the hastily established command center, a windowless conference room now bristling with monitors and communication arrays, Commander Traoré orchestrated a digital manhunt. The fate of the president rested on finding a ghost in the vast, labyrinthine network of government communications. They were hunting for Judas. Traoré sat at the head of the long table, a picture of preternatural calm. He listened intently as a young cyber intelligence officer, Lieutenant Amina Diallo, gave her report. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, bringing up complex data streams on the main screen. The traitor is good, Commander, very good, she said, her voice strained with a mix of frustration and professional respect. They're using a sophisticated cascade of VPNs and proxies, some routed through servers in Eastern Europe, others bouncing off satellites. The encryption is military grade, but they made one mistake. There's always one, Traoré murmured, leaning forward. They needed to access the final security overlay for tomorrow's event. Amina explained, that file is on a closed, air-gapped network. To access it, they had to physically connect a device to a specific server terminal in the palace's mainframe room. The connection lasted only 3.7 seconds, just long enough to clone the data. It happened exactly 94 minutes ago. Traoré slammed his palm on the table. The mainframe room, access is restricted to level 5 clearance. That narrows it down to less than 20 people. We have the logs, Amina said, pulling up a list of names and ID codes. But the access was masked. They spoofed the credentials of a maintenance supervisor who was on leave. Traoré studied the list. It included senior aides, military brass, even a cabinet minister. Any one of them could be the serpent. His gaze, however, drifted to the periphery of the investigation. What about the technicians themselves? The ones who maintain the servers? They have level 4 clearance. Monsieur le Président, Traoré said dismissively, they don't have access to the final security protocols. But they have access to the hardware. Traoré counted, they know the physical pathways, the blind spots in the surveillance. A clever man doesn't need to break down the door if he has a key to the cellar. Investigate the technicians on duty during that window. It was a hunch, a feeling born from years of understanding the subtle hierarchies and resentments within any large organization. The powerful rarely dirtied their own hands. They found a tool, someone overlooked, someone with a grievance, while Amina and her team dug into the lives of the technicians. Another team worked on locating the sniper. The intercepted chatter had mentioned a view of the baobab, a reference to the ancient baobab tree that stood on the western edge of the Place de la Nation. Using architectural plans and satellite imagery, they identified 3 buildings that offered a clear, elevated line of sight. Traoré dispatched 3 silent, elite teams to place each building under covert surveillance. The hours bled away. The city outside slept, unaware of the silent war being waged for its future. Traoré had refused Traoré's pleas to rest, instead drinking strong, sweet tea and reviewing agricultural reports. His focus an act of sheer will. He was projecting strength not just for his men, but for himself. Then, a breakthrough. Amina's face lit up. Got him, she whispered. She pointed to a profile on the screen. Technician Jean-Luc Diarra, 42 years old, 20 years of service, impeccable record. But, his daughter has a rare blood disorder. She was denied state-sponsored treatment abroad 2 months ago due to budget cuts. The same budget cuts we made to fund the VDP and the new military acquisitions. The motive clicked into place. Cold and tragic. It wasn't about ideology or foreign allegiance. It was about a father's desperation. He was passed over for promotion 3 times. Amina added, his file is full of commendations but no advancement. He's the perfect target for recruitment, skilled, invisible, and resentful. Where is he now? Traoré demanded. He didn't go home. He's still in the palace. His tracker shows him on the 3rd sub-level, near the communications hub. He's the relay, Traoré said, standing up. The sniper is in position, waiting for Diarra's signal. At that exact moment, another officer shouted, Commander, Team Alpha has eyes on him. A single man, non-African, with a large Pelican case. He's on the roof of the old Banque Internationale building. He's setting up. The pieces were on the board. The sniper, the traitor, the target. The clock was ticking down to the address. Seal the third sub-level, Traoré commanded, his voice ringing with authority. I want Diarra alive. Wait, Traoré said, holding up a hand. His mind was racing, formulating a new plan, a dangerous gambit. Don't move on Diarra yet. Let him think he's safe. He turned to Traoré, his eyes gleaming with a fierce intelligence. And tell Team Alpha to hold their position. I want the sniper to get comfortable. I want him to take the shot. The morning sun beat down on the Place de la Nation, the heat shimmering above the packed earth. A sea of humanity had gathered, a vibrant tapestry of colorful boobas, military uniforms, and the simple t-shirts of the youth, their faces upturned with a mixture of hope and defiance. Chants of Traoré, Sinkara, La Patrie ou la mort, Nous vaincrons, the fatherland or death, we shall overcome, rose and fell in powerful waves. From his vantage point on the roof of the Banque Internationale, the sniper saw only a target. He was a professional, detached from the politics and the passion. His name was Richter, and his world had narrowed to the crosshairs of his scope. The wind speed, and the figure in military fatigues who was now walking toward the podium. In the palace command center, the atmosphere was electric. He's on the move, an officer reported, his voice tight. On one screen, they saw President Traoré, calm and resolute, waving to the crowd. On another, a thermal image showed the heat signature of Richter, prone and steady on the neighboring rooftop. A third screen showed a flashing red dot, Jean-Luc Diarra, the traitorous technician, still hidden in the palace's digital heart. Patience. Traoré's voice came through Traoré's earpiece, a calm anchor in the storm. He had insisted on maintaining an open comms link. Let him settle, let him believe he is in control. Traoré stepped up to the microphone. The roar of the crowd was deafening. He raised a hand, and a respectful silence fell. Traoré watched the monitor, his heart pounding against his ribs. The president was wearing a custom-made, slim-profile ballistic vest, but it offered little protection against the kind of armor-piercing round Richter was likely using. It was a gamble of terrifying proportions. My brothers, my sisters, people of the land of the upright, Traoré began, his voice booming across the square, filled with a power that belied the immense danger he was in. They told us we were poor. They told us we were weak. They told us to beg for our daily bread from the same hands that stole the harvest from our fields. As he spoke, Traoré gave the signal, all teams, execute, go, go, go. The counterattack was a symphony of silent, synchronized violence. On the bank rooftop, two members of Team Alpha, clad in black, rappelled down the adjacent wall, their movements as fluid as shadows. A third member, positioned on a floor below, used a fiber optic camera to see under the door to the roof access stairwell. Richter, lost in his focus on the president, heard nothing. Simultaneously, in the third sublevel of the Costume Palace, Team Bravo breached the communications hub. They moved in a diamond formation, weapons low. Jean-Luc Diarra was hunched over a portable transmitter, his face slick with sweat, his eyes glued to a small screen showing a live feed from the square. He was seconds away from sending the confirmation signal. The narrative split, a tale of two captures. They seek to own our gold, our land, our very future. Traoré's voice thundered, but I say to you, the spirit of Burkina Faso is not for sale. On the rooftop, Richter adjusted for a slight crosswind. He had his shot. He exhaled slowly, his finger tightening on the trigger. In that split second, the stairwell door behind him burst open. Before he could even register the threat, a heavy boot connected with his ribs, and a hand of iron clamped over his mouth, stifling his cry. He was disarmed and subdued in less than 3 seconds. The shot never fired. The lead Alpha operative spoke into his wristcom. The serpent is defanged. I repeat, the serpent is defanged. In the communications hub, Diarra heard the whisper of combat boots on concrete. He looked up, his eyes wide with terror. He saw the elite soldiers closing in and, in a final, desperate act, slammed his thumb down on the button of his transmitter. No, Lieutenant Amina Diallo screamed in the command center. Signal sent. He sent the signal. Another officer yelled. But it wasn't the go signal for the sniper. It was something else. A dead man's switch. On the main screen in the command center, lines of malicious code began to cascade across the government's network maps. Red alerts flashed from every ministry: finance, defense, interior. What is that? What did he do? Traoré barked. Amina's face was pale. It's a data bomb, a logic bomb. He's locked us out. He's encrypted our entire national database. Everything. Financial records, intelligence assets, resource management, citizen registries, everything. We're digitally blind. He's initiated a siege. In the Place de la Nation, President Traoré finished his speech to a thunderous, euphoric ovation, completely unaware that while he had survived the assassin's bullet, his government had just been brought to its knees by the ghost in the wire. He had won the battle, but the war had just moved to a new, invisible front. The roar of the crowd faded into a distant memory, replaced by the sterile hum of the strategic operations bunker deep beneath the Cossium Palace. The assassination attempt had failed spectacularly, a public victory, but the silence in the bunker felt like a defeat. President Traoré, flanked by Traoré and the shell-shocked Minister of Technology, stared at the massive screen. It was a digital map of Burkina Faso's government infrastructure, and it was bleeding. Every server, every ministry database, every critical system was flashing red, locked behind a wall of impenetrable encryption. Jean-Luc Diarra's data bomb was a masterpiece of digital destruction. Give me an assessment, Lieutenant, Traoré said, his voice dangerously calm. He was addressing Amina Diallo, who now commanded the center of the room, her small team of cyber warriors working frantically at their terminals. It's a multi-layered cryptographic worm, Monsieur le Président, Amina reported, not taking her eyes off the cascading code. It didn't just lock the data, it's replicating itself, burrowing deeper into the backups. It's like a digital cancer. Every minute we waste, it gets harder to excise. We are, for all intents and purposes, crippled. We can't pay soldiers, access intelligence, manage power grids, or even verify citizenship. We've been thrown back into the analog age. Can you break it? Traoré asked, his frustration palpable. He was a man of action, and this invisible enemy was one he couldn't physically assault. With our current processing power, it would take years, Amina admitted, the words tasting like ash. Whoever designed this knew our systems intimately. They built the lock and the key. The key, that meant Diarra, the technician, was in custody, held in a secure location, but he was refusing to talk. He just sat in his cell, a broken man, muttering about his daughter. The professional sniper, Richter, was equally uncooperative, a cold-eyed mercenary who knew his employers would either rescue him or silence him permanently. He was prepared for both. Traoré paced the length of the room, the weight of the crisis settling upon him. The public saw him as a hero who had defied an assassin. But here, in the cold light of the bunker, he was a king trapped in a paralyzed castle. He felt a flicker of doubt, a cold snake in his gut. He had nationalized the mines to give the wealth back to the people. But what good was that wealth if the state itself could be turned off with a switch? This wasn't Diarra's work alone, Traoré stated, thinking aloud. The worm is too sophisticated, the sniper too professional. This is the second stage of the serpent's kiss. The bullet was just the overture. This is the real attack. To sow chaos, to make my government appear incompetent and weak, to make the people lose faith. He stopped and looked at Traoré. What aren't you telling me? Salif? Traoré hesitated, then gestured for Amina to bring up a newly isolated file. We found it hidden in a partition of the data bomb's code. A secondary payload. A timer is set to release it to every news outlet and social media platform on the continent in 48 hours. On the screen, a video file appeared. The thumbnail was a still of President Ibrahim Traoré, his face haggard, sitting in a dark room. Amina clicked play. The image was him. The voice was his. The mannerisms were his. The figure on the screen looked directly into the camera and began to confess. He spoke of secret deals with Russian oligarchs, of skimming millions from the nationalized gold reserves, of betraying the Sankarist ideals he publicly championed. He admitted to plotting against his own allies in Mali and Niger. It was a seamless, utterly convincing performance. A deepfake. Traoré breathed, a wave of nausea washing over him. It was a digital assassination, far more potent than any bullet. A bullet would make him a martyr. This video would make him a traitor. It's the most advanced I've ever seen, Amina said quietly. The audio is synthesized from his speeches. The video algorithm is flawless. Once this is out, it will be impossible to disprove quickly. The lie will travel around the world before the truth gets its boots on. It will shatter the alliance of Sahel states and turn our people against us. It's the checkmate. The room fell silent. They had survived the sniper. They were fighting the digital siege. But this new threat was existential. It was an attack on the one thing Traoré had left, the trust of his people. He was trapped. If they shut down the internet to stop the video's release, they would prove their incompetence and fuel rumors of a cover-up. If they did nothing, the video would destroy him and his revolution. The serpent had two fangs, and the second was coated in a far more insidious venom. The 48-hour clock on the deepfake video ticked down with merciless precision. The air in the bunker was thick with a despair so heavy it felt like a physical presence. Traoré's team was trapped in a perfect snare. Every defensive move seemed to lead to another, more devastating trap. For a long hour, the president sat in silence, watching the ticking clock, the ghost of his own face on the monitor promising his downfall. His team watched him, waiting for orders, for a sign of hope. They saw only the crushing weight of command on a young man's shoulders. Then, something shifted. Traoré stood up, his posture straightening, the exhaustion in his eyes replaced by a familiar, cold fire. The doubt that had plagued him was gone, burned away by the sheer audacity of the attack. "They think they have us," he said, his voice low but resonant, cutting through the gloom. "They think we will cower and wait for the axe to fall. They mistake our deliberation for paralysis." He turned to face his command staff. "A cornered lion does not wait. It attacks. We are going on the offensive." A new energy surged through the room. Traoré stepped forward. "What's the plan, Monsieur le Président? We've been trying to break Diarra and Richter." Traoré said, "We're asking the wrong questions. They are merely the tools. We need to find the hand that wields them." He turned to Amina. "The data bomb. You said the architect knew our systems. That implies they had access to our original network infrastructure blueprints. Where are those stored?" "The original plans are archived at the National Telecommunications Office," Amina replied, "but digital copies were shared with one primary contractor during the system upgrade 5 years ago, a French technology conglomerate, Omni Solutions." "And who was the Minister of Defense who approved that contract?" Traoré pressed. A file was pulled up. The name was instantly recognized by everyone in the room: General Etienne Zongo. A relic of the old regime. A man known for his lavish lifestyle and close ties to Western business interests. He had been forcibly retired after Traoré's coup and was now living in exile, reportedly in Abidjan, the economic hub of neighboring Côte d'Ivoire. Zongo. Traoré spat the name like a curse. "He hates you. He believes you stole his rightful place. He has the motive and the means." Traoré reasoned. He would have the blueprints, the contacts at Omni Solutions, and the grievances to collaborate with foreign intelligence. "He is our puppet master." He looked at the map, his eyes tracing the border with Côte d'Ivoire. "We cannot fight the deepfake. A ghost, so we will capture the man who created it. We will force him to confess, and we will broadcast his confession alongside their lie." The plan was audacious, bordering on reckless. It meant a covert, illegal incursion into a neighboring sovereign nation. If it failed, it would be a catastrophic international incident, proving the deepfake's claims of his recklessness and giving his enemies the perfect pretext to intervene. "It's too risky," the Minister of Technology argued. "An unsanctioned cross-border operation. The risk of doing nothing is greater." Traoré countered, his decision made. "They have declared a total war on us. We will respond in kind." He turned to his security chief. "Salif, I need your best team. Small, silent, and effective. I want General Zongo. I don't want him dead. I want him in this bunker, in front of a camera, within 36 hours. Traoré didn't flinch. This was a language he understood. He lives in a villa in the Cocody district of Abidjan. It's a wealthy area, but his security is private. Likely overconfident. "My men can be airborne in an hour." The mission was codenamed Operation Vindicator. As Traoré assembled his 5-man team, briefing them with satellite photos and floor plans of Zongo's villa, Traoré initiated his own part of the Counterstroke. He called for his press secretary. "I want you to schedule an emergency Pan-African broadcast. In 35 hours, tell them I have an urgent message for the people of Africa concerning the sovereignty of our nations." It was the ultimate gamble. He was setting his own deadline, a public promise he had to keep. He was scheduling his own vindication before he even knew if it was possible. The pursuit was no longer just for a man. It was a race between a lie and a truth that had not yet been captured. As Traoré's unmarked transport plane lifted off into the night sky, the clock on the deepfake continued its silent, menacing countdown. Traoré had thrown his spear. Now he had to wait and see if it would strike its target or if it would fall harmlessly to the ground, leaving him utterly defenseless. The Ivorian night was thick and humid. In the affluent Cocody district, the only sounds were the chirp of insects and the low hum of air conditioners. Inside General Etienne Zongo's walled villa, the disgraced officer poured himself another glass of expensive French cognac, a smug smile on his face. He watched a live feed on his laptop, a countdown timer from his co-conspirators. In just a few hours, the deepfake video would go live, and the world would turn on the young captain who had usurped him. Zongo felt a surge of triumph. It was the perfect, bloodless coup, fought with code and lies. He never heard the whisper-quiet cut of the power lines. He didn't notice the infrared security cameras go blind when the soft thud of gas canisters landing on his lawn finally registered. It was already too late. A fine, disorienting mist seeped under his doorway. His private guards, mercenary and undisciplined, were neutralized in seconds by the wraiths who emerged from the shadows. Traoré's team moved with the lethal efficiency of true professionals. The last thing General Zongo remembered was his patio door sliding open and a figure in black fatigues placing a firm hand on his shoulder. Back in the Ouagadougou bunker, the tension was unbearable. They had lost contact with Operation Vindicator the moment the team crossed the border. A necessary precaution to avoid electronic detection. President Traoré sat at the head of the table, his face a stoic mask, but his hands were clenched into fists under the table. His emergency broadcast was less than an hour away. The world's media was primed. The deepfake was set to drop at any moment. He had no confirmation of Zongo's capture. He had nothing. 5 minutes to air, Monsieur le Président, his press secretary said, his voice trembling slightly. Traoré gave a slow, deliberate nod. He would go on air regardless. If Traoré had failed, he would face the world, deny the lie, and go down fighting. He would not let the end of his revolution be a quiet surrender in a bunker. He walked to the small broadcast studio they had prepared adjacent to the command center. As he sat down and the technicians clipped a microphone to his uniform, a single red light on a secure phone began to blink. It was the signal. Amina Diallo's voice, ecstatic and breathless, came through his earpiece. Monsieur le Président, they have him. Operation Vindicator is a success. They are on their way to the extraction point. And the general, he is talking. A profound wave of relief washed over Traoré, so powerful it almost buckled him. He took a deep, steadying breath. Patch it through. Amina, patch the interrogation audio through to the main broadcast feed. Get a translator ready. We're changing the script. 3, 2, 1, you're live. Monsieur le Président. Traoré looked into the camera. His image was being beamed across Africa and the world. My fellow Africans, my brothers and sisters, for too long, our continent has been a battleground for foreign interests. They have used bullets, they have used sanctions, and now, they use lies. At that exact moment, the deepfake video was released. News alerts pinged on phones across the continent. Social media feeds exploded with the shocking confession. An insidious lie is being spread about me and my government as I speak. Traoré continued, his voice calm and strong. A sophisticated video designed to make me appear as a traitor. They want you to believe I have betrayed our struggle. He paused, letting the weight of the accusation hang in the air. But they know we are a people of truth. And tonight, I will not simply deny their lie. I will show you the liar. He nodded. In the command center, Amina hit a switch. The broadcast feed split. On one side was President Traoré. On the other, a live, grainy video feed appeared. It showed General Zongo, haggard and defeated, sitting in the back of a transport plane. Traoré was out of frame. His voice a low, insistent growl. Tell them who funded you. General, Traoré's voice demanded in French, with a translator speaking over him in English. Zongo hesitated, then broke. His confession tumbled out, a torrent of names, dates, and account numbers. He named Omni Solutions. He named 2 specific French intelligence handlers. He detailed the plot, from hiring Richter to recruiting the desperate Jean-Luc Diarra, to commissioning the deepfake from a firm in Brussels. He admitted the goal was to destabilize the country, force a UN intervention. and install a new government that would reverse the nationalization of the gold mines. The world watched, captivated, as the lie was eviscerated by the truth in real time. The counterstroke was a masterstroke. Traoré let the confession play for 2 full minutes before reclaiming the screen. "This is the face of the new imperialism," he declared, his eyes burning with conviction. "It is a serpent that whispers lies and promises riches to traitors. But it has underestimated the people of Burkina Faso. It has underestimated the spirit of a free Africa." He concluded not with anger, but with a quiet, profound humanity. "The struggle for our sovereignty comes at a great cost. Last night, one of my guards, a young man with a family, was wounded protecting our palace. His sacrifice, the desperation of technician Diarra, the greed of General Zongo, they are all casualties of this war for our soul. We will not fail them. We are a land of the upright. And tonight, we stand taller than ever before." The broadcast ended. In the bunker, a stunned silence was broken by a sudden eruption of cheers and applause. Traoré simply nodded, a heavy burden lifted. The serpent was exposed, its fangs drawn. The fight was far from over, but he had survived. He had looked into the abyss, and he had forced the abyss to blink first. His revolution, paid for in courage and cunning, lived to fight another day.